You're listening to a Brain Stew Fresh Fright Review.
What's up, creeps, and welcome to another Brain Stew Fresh Fright Review. I'm Justin.
I'm B-Ratty.
B-Rat-tat, and we are, on this episode, talking about the latest from M. Night Shyamalan, Knock at the... What the fuck? This, knock at the door, right?
On the cabin door. Hey,
oh, yeah,
hey,
that's...
Hey.
I keep wanting to call it Knock at the Door or Knock at the Cabin. It's just Knock at the Cabin.
Knock at the Cabin.
Shouldn't it have been Knock at the Cabin Door? Wouldn't that have made more sense? Because they knock at the door in the movie?
Yeah, but I mean, technically the door is the cabin, so they're just knocking at the cabin. But I think the whole time I've been calling it Knock at the Cabin Door because, like, it just sounds like that's what you would say. Like, yeah, it's the knock at the cabin door.
If I was going to say he knocked on the house door, I wouldn't say he knocked on the house.
I'm
just overthinking the entire thing.
Maybe it's a regional thing.
Okay.
All right. This whole episode is about.
What's the name of the book that the film is based on?
It's The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay.
Okay, that sounds way too. I guess intellectual. It sounds way too smart to be a movie name.
Sounds very literary. Yeah.
General audiences to go get excited to see it. But yes, we are talking about Knock at the Cabin, a movie that I don't think we really talked about on the show at all leading up to the release.
We did. It was on my list. Okay.
Not that much, I said.
I gave
it's
a
not
very
like we
heartfelt
reviewed the
30
trailer.
seconds. Probably one of the best 30-second performances of my life, which is
saying
a lot.
You're probably right. But ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen the movie...
Spoilers.
Yes, all the way through. And Brady has read the book as well, so I'm going to actually be asking him in some parts how it compares to the book because, of course, this is an adaptation, and it kind of has to be discussed at all, somewhat. And you just kind of have to. So you did have it on your list, so I would just open it up with you. So you had anticipation for this.
Yeah, so, Paul Tremblay is probably one of my favorite modern horror authors. He's got a handful of books out. Head Full of Ghosts was like his big, big hit that got him launched into stardom and got a book deal. And then he came out with The Cabin at the End of the World, followed by Survivor Song. And then just recently he had The Pallbearers Club. All really good books, but Head Full of Ghosts is the one that I always had my eye on because Robert Downey Jr.'s production company picked it up right before COVID. And so they had Margaret Qualley was attached to it. It was starting to get into pre-production, and then COVID happened, shut it down. And then, back in the fall, Paul Tremblay came out with an announcement and was like, yeah, fucking M. Night is doing an adaptation of my book. And I was like, holy fuck, it's got to be Head Full of Ghosts. And then it was Knock at the Cabin. And I was like, oh shit, it's Cabin at the End of the World. So, I don't know. I went into it knowing, as you do with film adaptations, that they're going to take some liberties, right? And
they're going to change,
especially with M. Night Shyamalan. He's going to do his thing, and I was expecting a twist. We'll get into that in the review, but I don't know. I kept a very open mind, and there were things that I wanted to see stay intact with the story that did, and then there were things that fell apart that I was very upset with, because I do think that it detracted from the overall power of the story. That being said, do you want my initial thoughts?
Well, yeah, I was just going to kind of roll through a little bit with your anticipation. I was going to say, before we get into that, for me at least, in terms of anticipation for this movie, there was very little, if any. I think the trailer itself intrigued me solely based on the fact that Dave Bautista was in it.
Dude.
And I was like, oh, dude. I've loved everything he's been doing. Mm-hmm. Even from small roles in Dune to Blade Runner 2049, he's really been showcasing his acting talents. And people are saying this, but I'm going to say it myself. He's by far the best wrestler turned actor there is.
For sure.
his work in the Guardians movies, his comedic timing. I mean, The Rock is a good action hero. I've yet to see The Rock do any kind of dramatic role. Now, I'm waiting to see what Batista can do, but I was happy to see him in a role like this because it's different from what we're used to seeing him in. But also with this movie, I didn't see old. I heard way too many things about it from people that I trust. And 9 times out of 10, I always give things an open opportunity from my own viewpoint and want to watch something. But it honestly it just kind of slipped through the cracks, and I was like, never mind, I'll just wait. But the last movie I saw that was Shyamalan was Glass, and I was so disappointed by it because I loved Split so much. I thought it was a great return to form. I thought it was a brilliant thriller.
I was going to ask, what was that the last movie by Shyamalan that you liked? Was Split?
Was Split, yeah. I just Glass. I mean, because how this worked was at Alamo, we did like a triple feature advanced screening of Glass. So we started with Unbreakable, which I hadn't seen in years and thought was absolutely brilliant. I mean, just watching it 20 years later, such a great film, one of his best. And then Split, second, and I'd already seen it in the theaters twice and owned it by that point. And then you get to Glass. So watching them, in conjunction with one another, one after the other, it really showed, the drop in terms of quality,
how awful
character.
It was. Yeah.
You saw what he was trying to do with it, but he was just, overstuffed, and he didn't really know how to conclude anything. So I skipped old, but I've never been one to really hate his movies, but also on the same token, I haven't seen all of his movies. Excuse me. But yeah, so this one, I kind of just jumped in and was like, listen, the premise looks cool enough. Home invasion. Looks like it could be a little bit, more violent than we're used to with his movies. I'm not sure if I was right on that or not. But yeah, so I was open to it. I give everything an opportunity if I have the time. So yeah, man, we might as well jump right in with your initial thoughts.
So, like we said, spoiler heavy episode here.
Spoilers.
I thought Batista as Leonard was great. I think he's menacing. I think he's commanding. I think he eats up every bit of screen time that he has. And I think I wasn't sure what to expect. Like you said, like we've been watching him. We've seen him do some really good things with Guardians of the Galaxy, with Dune, with Blade Runner 2049. But in this role, I mean, he's very soft-spoken, right? But it's just his delivery of everything. So he's really showing his dramatic chops here. The rest of the supporting cast of the group, or the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, what you will, couldn't give a flying fuck about the rest of them. Like Rupert Grint with whatever fucking accent that was. Like, what the fuck was that? He was like,
what
and then
was
he was
he
like,
trying
I'm from
to do?
Medford, Massachusetts. I was like, I live up here. You do not sound like that in Medford, Massachusetts. And then he like went back to like Ron Weasley's accent. I said, okay, just stick with one, buddy. That being said, Jonathan Groff, Ben Aldridge gave great performances as Eric and Andrew.
Yes.
I thought that their storyline as a family was really, really strong, and they showed authentic connection with each other that really made you care for them and what was going to happen. Because let's be honest, like, it's 4 people showing up to a cabin, tying a family up, and then telling them, hey, like, you have to kill one of you in order to save the world. Like, it's not going to end well. Like, there is no way that this movie ends well, and that's how the tone of the movie follows throughout. So I got to commend Shyamalan for keeping that same tone throughout the whole movie of like, nothing good is going to come of this. Now, if you've read the book, spoiler alert here, at the end, Wen gets shot accidentally and killed, and that doesn't count as the sacrifice to save the world. In the movie, I believe it's Eric, I just saw it, sacrifices himself, Jonathan Groff's character, to get killed so that the apocalypse will stop. So I personally wasn't pissed off by it. I saw it coming. I knew that that's what was going to happen because it got leaked that Shyamalan had changed the ending. But I don't know. It felt like the ending was flat for me, like a little too tied up. And Justin, you and I talked about it earlier. It's like, I didn't hate it. I didn't, love it, but I felt through most of the last half of the movie, like it was just like in the middle, So
you kind of have to. I mean, right off the bat, after I walked out of the theater, I felt very similar to that. But you have to give Shyamalan credit where credit is due, man. He swings for the fences, and sometimes, it lands with a thud, or sometimes it goes over the wall. And this was one that just kind of sat there and did its thing. And in terms of suspense, man, the guy really, it's like half and half, 50-50. Sometimes he just knows how to convey suspense perfectly, and it's done well. And this movie showcased some of that. In other movies, it just, as flat as can be. But the dude, he self-finances all of his movies.
He stars in all of them.
Well, it's a cameo. It's like a Hitchcock thing. He always just has to have a thing in there. Though Hitchcock wasn't like a full character with lots of dialogue. He was just a cameo. Yeah. But the movie has already made $20 million on a $21 million on a $20 million budget around that. And it finally dethroned Avatar 2: The Way of Water. Yeah. The first movie. Now, granted, Avatar's in its like 7th week or some shit. So it's not like that big of an achievement. But at the same time, M. Night himself tweeted, thank you to all who made Knock at the Cabin the #1 film this week, and I am pinching myself that this is the 7th time this has happened to me. This is the 4th in a row with Universal Pictures. Much love to James Cameron. He's a hero to me. Glad to be in theaters with you. I mean, he always just seems like a stand-up guy. Like his films or not, like he really does try. It's frustrating when you do see a movie of his that isn't good or like, is complete shit. You're like, man, this guy's got it in him. You know what I mean? You can see it. Even in this movie, I totally agree with you that I didn't love this movie, but I also didn't hate it. I was like really like smack dab in the middle on it. But overall, I enjoyed it. I mean, there's some shit in there that does not work at all. The ending I felt was so frustrating and anticlimactic, but the characters, and I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I thought all of the characters in terms of the 4 horsemen were at least interesting enough. They all felt like real people. Well, maybe not O'Bannon. Okay. It felt bad for Rupert Grint, also AKA Redman.
Because he's great in Servant. I don't know if you've seen that on Apple TV, but man, he's great.
I haven't, but I just, I'm not a huge Potter guy, but a few years ago, Loy Sauce made me watch all through them. I got the 4K box set, and for the first time watched through them. And I just love him as Ron Weasley, and I think it was great to see him in a different kind of role here, where he was like threatening and stuff. But at the same time, he's in the movie for all of 15 minutes, then he's gone.
Yeah. As soon as I realized,
was that supposed to be like a Janet Leigh moment or something? Because it really didn't land that way.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So going back to characters, I will also contradict myself. I loved,
as you always do in these things.
I know. I always do. You guys can see in real time the conflict in my head. When I said that I liked Ben Aldridge and Jonathan Groff, I do, but I do have an issue with Jonathan Groff in a lot of his roles where I do not like the way he talks.
Okay, this is a fucking nitpick.
This is a nitpick.
What are you talking about?
So Ben Aldridge, I think, gave the performance of his life as Andrew. He was great. He was emotional. He was devastating. He was angry. Like, he was all over the place in the perfect cues. Jonathan Groff keeps the same voice like this. And I know he had a concussion, but if you watch Mindhunter, he talks the same in Mindhunter. In fucking Frozen, he talks the same in Frozen. He talks the same, and I don't like it.
He's the calm one. He's like the calm, collected one,
Yeah, but it's the way he talks. And it's sometimes it comes across to me as inauthentic in his characters. So that's all. Okay. It came across here that way for me.
I think it's
that's my opinion, and you can't tell me I'm wrong.
Fine.
Okay?
Fine. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I mean, I'm just going to say his voice didn't bother me at all. And in fact, I found comfort from him anytime he talked, because he stayed in terms of how elevated they got and anxious and terrified by the situation. He stayed the most calm,
he was concussed.
At least in my
he didn't
viewpoint.
know what was going on.
I know. He also got his ass whooped real fucking quick in the beginning of the movie, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, he did. Dude, so, but fucking Andrew going to town on O'Bannon, though. He's giving him the 1-2.
We know why later on, why he's capable of doing that. Yeah. But I will kick off, the opening of the movie, I think, is still the best work in the movie. I think it's the most effective. the movie opens and Wen is just catching grasshoppers. It's a beautifully shot sequence. There's a lot of very interesting camera angles used. And Leonard shows up, Dave Bautista, making friends with her, very kind. It's a different side of Bautista that we haven't really seen in any other movie, where he's just calm and welcoming and warm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
disarming.
then the movie, yeah, exactly. The movie goes right into, like, I didn't realize it was going to do this. I thought it might start with, them driving to the cabin. We see the movie is woven through with flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So the movie opens with the events, them getting to the cabin and instantly trying to get in the cabin.
Yeah.
And I think it was, we've seen a lot of home invasion movies,
mm-hmm.
a lot of very effective ones. I thought this stuff here was very effective and definitely the most frightening stuff in the movie.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, right off the bat where Leonard is talking to Wen about, hey, we're going to play this game where you're going to pick a flower or the petals off the flower and ask questions, like, very disarming. And then you find out later, like, Leonard was a teacher, so like that's how it lends itself to his character. But then when it flips, man, like 5 minutes into the movie, and he's like, I just want you to know that no matter what happens, like, you're still my friend, and like nothing is your fault. Like, you haven't done anything. This just has to happen. And it's like, I don't know, man, it was kind of chilling, because then you see everybody start walking up with their weapons their tools, and like, that shit is just not going to go well. And yeah, and then Wen runs right up into the house, locks the door, gets Daddy Eric and Daddy Andrew, and then shit just starts going south. And I mean, even the characters know, Bautista's gonna fucking knock that door down if he has to. And when Andrew looks out the door, he's like, that guy's big.
He's like, guy's huge.
Yeah.
Of course he is. Yeah. I mean, he used to be fucking WWE champion, motherfucker. Of course he is. It is interesting. I mean, I understand he came out recently in the press while doing interviews for this movie. Like, he'd like to do rom-coms. No one offers them to him. And it's interesting seeing him play a teacher. Like a coach, sure. But I mean, he's got tattoos everywhere. Yeah. Like, I'm pretty fucking covered, man. Yeah. He's got his hands, his arms all the way around his neck and parts and stuff like that. But we are in 2023, motherfucker. Mm-hmm. Like, there's so many people that look like that. So I actually, that made me super happy to see representation for, tattooed people to that level, and just showing it in a normal way. Not that he's frightening because he has tattoos. I mean, he's frightening because he's a huge motherfucking guy. He could crush your skull with his hand.
Yeah, dude, he's intimidating. Like I said, it's commanding in his performance. But then it's that juxtaposition of that and then him just sweet talking the entire time. There's one point where he yells, but other than that, he's just sweet, caring.
I mean, and his yell is more of a concerned yell than like, I'm angry at you yell. Mm-hmm. I'm not. So this is where the issue lies for me. Once we get the four horsemen, if you will, inside the house, the two fathers are tied up in chairs.
Yep.
And Wen is just kind of chilling there because they know that she's not going to go anywhere. The level of danger instantly plummets. And you quickly realize, that no serious danger is going to occur to this family. That anything that happens is going to be solely based on their decision on, what they're being told by these four people that came into their home. And, there's that disbelief that kind of starts and, it ends all the way at the end of the movie with these characters trying to understand what they're being told. Is it real? Is this something we actually need to believe, or is it just complete bullshit like cult? You guys are coming into our house and trying to just murder us because we're gay.
Yeah.
But I feel like while we're sitting there and watching them go through this process, it kind of gets to a point where I'm like, you're expecting, you're knowing what to expect in every single scene.
Yeah, and especially, when O'Bannon becomes the first sacrifice to bring on the first plague, right? Like, after that happens, I think you realize, like, okay, I was able to take a step back and be like, all right, well, nothing's really going to happen to this family unless they choose it to happen, because they're just going to end up keep killing themselves.
Yeah, and to explain to explain to the listeners, I mean, if you've seen the movie, that's why you're listening. But if you're listening and you don't care about, watching the movie first, when they set off these plagues, they're sacrificing themselves. Mm-hmm. They're having to actually die.
Yeah.
For it to occur.
So they have to kill one of their own, like they want the family to kill one of their own, which is kind of funny when you think about it. Like they're doing this to bring on these plagues, but they want the family to kill one of their own to stop everything.
Does that make a lot of sense to you, Brady?
No, nothing makes a lot of sense to me. But yeah, and so, like Justin said, you get these flashbacks to different periods of life of the family. So you get a flashback to when Eric and Andrew are dating and having to introduce each other to Andrew's parents, and it doesn't go well. And then, when they find Wen for the first time, or when they agree to be parents and they're going through their checklist of the things that they have wrong with each other.
Which is very interesting. I wish more couples should do that. Yeah. Like open and authentic. Let's lay it on the table, which they literally did.
He's like,
these are the things I don't like about you.
The life out of the room in every situation. He's like, we said we were going to temper it. And he's like, okay, out of most situations.
I'll be sure to remind Jeremy that he does that every time he's on the show next time.
Yeah. Love you, Jeremy. But yeah, I thought those scenes were good. And then you get the scene of Andrew being hit over the head with a bottle repeatedly, having to get surgery in a bar after a bigoted person comes up and asks them to be quiet because he's trying to drink with his friends.
Listen, here's the thing, though. We assume he's bigoted. I'm not saying that he's not. Mm-hmm. But he didn't say any slurs or anything.
Yeah, you don't have to say a slur to be bigoted. Come on. You know what
No, that's doing. True. I guess I know. I assume, based on the motivations of what the film is doing, I understand that. But to me, that could have been me sitting there with you, mm-hmm. and we were having the same conversation, similar conversation.
Yeah.
I didn't see him being close enough to hear the dialogue, but yes, it is considered a hate crime of sorts.
Yeah. And then you get the backstory of Andrew then taking up kickboxing classes and buying a handgun for protection, which, surprise, surprise, he brings with him on the trip, which, I guess we can speed up ahead to that a little bit, as these apocalyptic things are happening, a tsunami hits the coast and wipes out just hordes of people along
pretty terrifying shit, man. I gotta say
that was probably the scariest part of the movie. That tsunami, like that shit terrifies me.
It was extremely well done, and that's one thing. Anytime I'm at the beach, dude, I shit you not, every time I'm at the beach, I'm looking at that water, and anyone that knows anything about what the future holds for our planet knows that eventually
it's gonna go down.
Most beaches in coastal fronts of the land is going to be covered in water within a certain period of time.
Yeah. And then after that, you have the planes begin crashing. They said something like 700 planes start just falling out of the sky. And the whole time, Andrew's just trying to rationalize it. And he's like, well, it must have been a terrorist attack. Like, it must have been this. Like, it's a pre-recorded show. They already knew this was going to happen before they came in the house. And you can see that Eric is starting to either believe it because he's concussed, or he sees a vision or a specter. But he starts slowly coming around to the idea that, like, maybe these people, like, are being truthful and this is really happening. And then you have to kind of look at it. Like, one thing that I don't think the movie does quite as well as the book does is capture, like, they're isolated. So these things are happening and they can see it on TV, but, like, you're in an isolated cabin. You don't know what's going on. The cell phones don't work there. The landline's been cut, but, like, you're so far away from all of this stuff that you have to take their word for it. Or you have to do what Andrew does and just say no.
Or you have to do what Andrew does and said, no, I don't believe this.
Yeah. And so I wish that they had been able to convey that a little better, but it's not bad. It's just, again, a nitpicking thing. But then, you get down to it's just Sabrina and Leonard left, and Andrew and Eric are able to free themselves. Eric.
Which, by the way, I have to say this right now, okay? It's a movie.
Yeah.
Suspension of disbelief. Yes, it's a fucking movie. But when Wen gives Eric the knife to start cutting through the rope, it's like dead silent in that room. There's like no sound. Like, dude, if I'm sitting in the chair that I'm sitting in now to record this podcast, and there's someone standing 10 feet from me with there's no TV on, no radio, you're going to hear the rope being cut by a knife.
Oh, and his arm is going up and down the whole time.
I'm just saying. I mean, what else would they think he's doing?
I think
they know he's cutting a fucking
They
rope.
probably just think he's fidgety. And, like, his daughter's there, so they're probably like, he's trying to comfort. They
But
probably
the
just don't care.
sound, Brady, what I'm saying is the sound. The sound of a knife cutting through a rope is a very distinct sound.
Oh, I know.
And they've done all of these other things that they're so meticulous in trying to keep these people in this spot. And, you know, in order to prevent the apocalypse, it just was a little bit too far-fetched for me. I know that's, hey, whatever. I said you were nitpicking. This could be considered a nitpick. I just thought.
I just want to highlight
you know,
that it's with Jonathan Groff's character again, so...
Yes.
So that's 2 nitpicks on Jonathan Groff. Anyways, so...
Okay, all right, or whatever.
The-
Maybe it was his performance that he was cutting the fucking rope too loud, Brady. So you don't like the way he talks, and I don't like the way he cuts a rope.
Well, get him out
Boom,
of here.
there
Get
it
him
is.
out of here. And then Andrew runs out to the car where we know that he has his handgun in the safe. He gets out there, but Sabrina follows him and jabs him or hits him in the fucking leg with her pickaxe or whatever she has and just gashes his kneecap open. And then he throws dirt in her eyes, gets in the car, climbs back there. She's breaking through. It's the whole typical struggle of he can't open the safe.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what I appreciated about that scene? You can see with her character and her performance that she really doesn't want to hurt him.
Yeah.
That she's trying her best, like, to prevent him from getting. Which they don't know the gun's in there. They don't know there's a gun, but she's trying to stop him from getting in the car. And you could see it on her face that she's like, fuck, I really don't want to hurt this guy.
Yeah, and then, so she's like, so she breaks open the window and she starts sticking like the spear end of her weapon into his side. And she's like, don't stop whatever you're doing. Put down whatever's in the back and just like get out. Like
She's asking him nicely
but then
almost. She's not like cussing him out.
slowly, like pushing it into him. Oh, it's so gross. So then he gets the gun, finally loads it, fires off a warning shot. She goes running. He goes back inside.
Which is fucking hilarious the way she runs. She ran like how a deer runs when they hear a gunshot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then Andrew gets back in, points his gun at Leonard. Here's the other thing. I know that this is supposed to show like the human aspect of Andrew and Eric, which is another thing that I have wrong with their characters in this movie, is that they made them like this perfect couple, which in the book they're not. And like the ideal couple in the book, again, they're not. But dude, this guy has been leading these people to torment your family, telling you that you're going to have to choose one of you to kill, and you still hesitate and say, hey, put the weapon down. No, if I go in there, I'm putting every single round in that handgun into the back of this mountain that is in front of me.
Well, especially when you see, you know, the rage that Andrew has, and you can see clearly throughout the movie, he has an anger problem. Mm-hmm. He shouts a lot of his lines. He's shouting at them, you know, screaming at them a lot. So it gets to the point where you're like, this guy's got a rage problem. He clearly has, he needs some anger management or some shit.
Well, I mean, even Eric at one point says, like, you have a temper when they're going over their issues.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
like, you're not dangerous, but you have a temper. So, like, and everybody knows at this point. But then the best fucking part, Sabrina comes in the back door and starts just sprinting.
Gung ho, like she's gonna try to fucking spear him Goldberg style, and boom,
just blasts her. But then, so then Leonard is standing there, and he is very calm still. And Andrew is not calm and is like, you're going to get in the bathroom. I'm going to take my family. We're going to go. He's like, but we're not like you, so we're going to just leave you here. So, again, puts him in the bathroom, locks the door.
Which is literally, I mean, here's the thing. And he easily tricks them because there's no way that 300-pound Dave Bautista is going to go through that tiny ass window.
No. Yeah, he breaks the window, and then they go in. They're like, okay, the window's broken. Did he get out? And everybody watching the movie will say, there's no way Bautista's shoulders could have gotten through that fucking shit.
Dude, even though he's nowhere near as big as he used to be back in WWE days, or even before that, I mean, even as Drax, he's still a big dude. He still lifts, but he lost so much size. Yeah. He's down to like a normal build for a guy that he still lifts. He's in great shape, but he's not the bodybuilder size he used to be.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but his shoulders are still fucking huge.
Yeah,
he's still got massive lats, dude. He's not going to get through that. Dude, bro, his fucking head. Have you noticed all the close-ups of his head in this movie? His head is a giant round fucking melon, dude. That shit ain't going through no hole.
No. So then Andrew looks at
he's melon head, man.
He is. Andrew fires off a round through the curtain into the bathtub. You don't hear anything move. You don't hear anybody scream, but you know somebody's there. And Then Leonard pops out. A struggle ensues. Leonard gets the gun, gets them to go watch the TV that Eric then turns on. You find more just awful shit is happening. And then Leonard says, all right, let's go out to the back porch. And then Leonard is the final sacrifice.
Yeah. And it's, the movies are.
Well, he's not the final sacrifice, but.
He's not. He's the final sacrifice of the four horsemen. Mm-hmm. But the movies are. And I did appreciate in some respects that M. Night held back a little bit. I mean, Leonard is a character, someone that you kind of relate to. You can see his hesitation. You can see how he really doesn't want to be doing this, but he truly believes that what he's doing is the right thing to do. And when he's sitting there and he takes his own life, it's disturbing, but in the same way, it's calming. Mm-hmm. They didn't zoom in on his throat as he's cutting his throat. You see it slit, and it's done modestly with taste, if that makes any sense.
No,
I'm the kind of guy that typically when I see someone get their throat cut in a movie, I want to see fucking Japanese anime style, like fucking, that shit pouring out yeah.
No, I agree. I thought that it was another good way for him to really just show that he's a great actor and is destined to do even more great things in film. And then you get the scene where the apocalypse is still happening. Andrew begins to realize that things are very real. And
no shit, this is actually happening.
Yeah, and then
I finally realized that.
Eric, they have their tender moment where Eric says, "I'm seeing things very clearly.
Tender diddles.
You're going." He's like, "I have a vision. I want you to kill me while I have this great vision of our daughter grown up with you by her side, and she's met somebody who makes her just as happy as you made me."
Which was a really sweet scene.
I teared up, man, and there were people in the theater bawling. Like, I will say that about this movie. Like, there were some very, very sentimental moments.
For sure.
And I know that M. Night isn't going to come in there and kill off Wen. Like, he's just not going to kill the kid, But
Do you think if they had done that in the movie like it is in the book, that it would have had more of an impact? Or do you think, I assume that the GA would probably be really fucking pissed to see a cute little girl getting offed.
So the book's ending is so ambiguous and so just kind of like a gut punch where you don't feel good with how it ends, and you can't have that kind of movie, with it.
So is it kind of like the ending of The Mist a little bit?
Yeah, not quite as bad. Not quite as fucking just awful. But, at the end of the book, you have Eric and Andrew are still like, all right, well, what do we do? Like, our daughter's dead. The apocalypse is still happening. Like, do we still have to kill one of us to end it? Like, why? And then you never get answered, like, why these things are happening. So I don't know. I think this was a more... a better way to include general audience moviegoers. Like, I think.
Well, they need. Also, we discussed this pre-show a little bit. The way that modern audiences expect to be spoon-fed, I really don't think that anyone would have walked out of this movie had it be ambiguous and been satisfied by it. People like a final conclusion to their movie. Mm-hmm. Me, on the other hand, I would have loved a somber, disturbing, ambiguous, you don't know what the fuck is going on ending where you're like, everything's left up in the air, like destruction is occurring or what have you, like anything that's going to, challenge me or my thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the ending it has heart. There's a lot of emotion, but at the same time, it's so easy. You know what I mean? It's just, you can see it coming a mile away. You're like, okay, one of them's going to go, they're going to realize this shit happened for real.
Thank God it was Jonathan Groff.
God damn that motherfucker and how he cuts a rope so loud.
Oh my God. He was like, I just want you to kill me. I was like, oh, you get it.
Actually, I did like him in the movie, but then the movie, it kind of just stops to a halt, and I'm not sure how I'm supposed to feel with Andrew and Wen. They get in a car. I think it's Leonard's truck that they found,
it's a Ram.
which he conveniently left the keys in.
Which doesn't happen in the book. Yeah,
it doesn't.
Well, I mean, like, they get the car, but the keys aren't just left in there. They have to, like. So in the book, after Wen gets killed.
In the book.
In the book. After Wen gets killed, Leonard just sits there and he's like super upset. So he lets Eric and Andrew tie him up. But then Sabrina is still alive. So then Sabrina begins to tell Eric and Andrew how she and the other visitors were led by their visions and compulsions to find each other online, execute their plan, what kind of weapons they were supposed to have, and even when they didn't want to do it, like they all had to support each other to keep going with it, which you see through the movie. But then she decides that after Wen dies, that she wants to abandon her task. So then Sabrina kills Leonard and offers to lead Eric and Andrew to Redmond's car.
I see.
Mm-hmm. And then in the background, the TV is showing spontaneous plane crashes around. And then they follow Sabrina into the forest, taking Wen's body. Sabrina recovers the car keys and a gun that Redmond hid as well. She tells them there's still time to prevent the apocalypse, and then she kills herself. And then Eric wants to kill himself, but then Andrew says, no, because it's not. He said, you're not going to kill yourself because I'm not going to sacrifice you to a god or whatever there is that didn't accept our daughter as a good sacrifice. And then they decide to embrace whatever happens together. And then it just ends. So you don't know what happens. So it's still, I think, a sweet, beautiful ending, but it's definitely more ambiguous than the modern moviegoer wants.
Yeah, for sure. There's no way they would have walked out of that thing excited, because the ending, in its own way is a happy ending. We see Wen and Andrew, they drive down the road. We see earlier in the movie that they have their favorite song that they sing to and dance in the car, and it comes on the radio. When, after Andrew turns it off, she turns it back on. She turns it off. He turns it back on. They're trying to find normalcy in the moment, and they stop at this diner. And you see all these families kind of embracing each other, just kind of, hold out in there. And on the TV, of course, a lot of this story takes place with news clips that we're seeing on the TV, which, everyone in these kinds of situations would be looking at, the news to find out what's going on. They walk in the diner, they see what's on the news, they get back in the truck and just drive off, and the movie ends.
I get that. Like, it did feel very rushed and a little too neat, but it also goes back into when Andrew goes to get Wen from her treehouse that she's hiding in. She goes, did Daddy Eric save the world? Like, did he save everybody else? And then that's what's implied. So then, yes, there's this very somber moment where everybody's calling their loved ones in the diner, or that waitress calls and says, yeah, I love you. Like, everything's going to be okay. It's over now. Like, they kind of share that moment with each other where they're like, okay, cool. Like, Eric did stop it. But yeah, then it's like they just drive off. Like, that's how it ends. Like, come on.
Yeah, in all reality, I don't even know how I would end it any other way. But at the same time, leading up to it, I thought the movie was solid. I think, one of the things I have to appreciate the most about Knock at the Cabin is how it treats its gay characters as actual characters, real people who show aggression, show their own spirituality with the world, as opposed to just, kind of basically caricatures that can't be touched, only admired, so people feel proud of acknowledging their existence in a way. It's just, they felt like real people, and they didn't, a lot of times filmmakers these days put gay characters in movies to get a response. And this, to me, didn't feel like, now, granted, I didn't read the book. I assume the characters, you said they're also the same in the book, right?
Yeah. They're just, okay. I think, a little more human. Which
I'll
get into with mine.
Okay. But to me, it just felt like I was watching a family, a couple that had a little girl. Yeah. It didn't feel like anything tacked on or try hard or trying to convey any specific message to one side or the other. It was just a movie about this family.
Yeah.
And I have to show deep appreciation for that from M. Night.
And I also have to say that I think this is the first M. Night movie where there's no twist. Right?
I could not believe it.
Yeah.
I could not believe it.
There was somebody in the theater that said that's not a real M. Night movie because there was no twist. And I was like, all right, dude, calm down.
Dude,
M. Night
I'm pretty sure people are, there's, some of the bigger publications are trying to claim there's a twist in this movie. And I was like, where the fuck is it? I didn't see a twist.
I didn't.
Where is there a twist in this movie?
I don't think there was a twist. I think the twist was that you were expecting a twist and you didn't get one.
Ooh, burn. M. Night, look what you did there.
Look what you did.
People going in expecting something, and you didn't give it to them.
Yeah.
Boom.
Wow, look at you go. You definitely gave him that fried chicken from that air fryer, though, and that infomercial. You hear that chicken?
I laughed so fucking hard at that. And at the same time, I was like, I really want some fried chicken.
I know. I was like, man, I'm so fucking hungry right now. Yeah, I know. I agree. I think that they really, in the book especially, the characters of Eric and Andrew are really fleshed out and given a lot more personality and depth that I don't think it's hard with adaptations. You can't get everything into the movie. And while I have shit on Jonathan Groff on this episode, I do think that they had a really good connection with each other and that they were fantastic together. Yeah. Perfect chemistry. And yeah, exactly. They just had great chemistry that showed these two people very much in love and very much in love with their daughter. Which I always complain about, that you don't get enough feeling for the characters. Like, I think it was here. Like, you didn't want any of them to die. Yeah. I also didn't want Leonard to die, but that's just because Batista. That's just me. Well, also have to ask before we wrap things up here, what did you think of the character of Wen and the performance by Kristen Cui? Oh, dude, she was great. Yeah. Except when her trick to distract Leonard is to scream about wanting her cartoons back on. I was so fucking annoyed. And maybe it's just because I don't like kids, but when Eric says, like, gives her the head nod and she starts screaming so he can finish uncutting the rope. And she's just like, where? I want my cartoons back on. And Batista's like, you're going to count back from 5 with me, okay? I was like, yeah, this dude's a teacher. He's like, 5, dude, remember, we're going to start again. Remember to do that with me next time I get angry about something. Next time Justin and Jeremy start yelling about Scream on the podcast, I'm going to be like, all right, guys, count back from 5. Scream 5, Scream 4, Scream 3. But no, I thought she was really, really great. And her character has a lot to do in this movie, and I think that she handles it all extremely well, especially for her age, where she comes off as cute and innocent, but also has a lot of personality, where, like, in the moments where she's being defiant towards Leonard or towards the group, where she's just shaking her head or not talking, like, I thought she did that really well. Yeah, this is like one of her first actual real role, too. But prior to this, I think she only did a music video or something. Yeah. So in that respect, brilliant. I mean, I was definitely taken with her performance in the movie. And, a lot of people do like to shit on child performances in M. Night movies. Signs, for example, Abigail Breslin, Rory Culkin. A lot of people think they're dog shit in that movie. Shall we have a foot race? But, I thought she was fantastic in the movie, and I think, overall, all the performances are solid. I didn't think anyone overdid it or underdid it. I would have liked to see, Rupert Grint do more in the movie. Yeah. Also, what the fuck was that accent again? I still don't know. But he did come off as threatening. He got his ass whooped by Andrew in the beginning, too. For sure. And when they first come in. You're right. He definitely comes across, I think he was threatening kind of in that flip side of the coin of Andrew's rage, where Andrew, you never really felt like he was going to do something bad when he was angry, like Eric said. But then you had O'Bannon, who was constantly just like making comments or getting upset and agitated and swinging his weapon in threatening ways. So, like, I don't know. I thought that was a cool kind of like mirror image of each other, like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of thing. For sure. But yeah, performances all around were fine. The only thing that I would say about the group of intruders is that, like, Adrian really didn't get a lot of time. And I just didn't like her character in the book or in the movie overall, which I don't think it was the actor's fault. It was just something about the character. She literally just works at like a Mexican restaurant or something, right? But she has a kid named Charlie. Yeah. She has a little boy. She seemed like a nice girl, but she was probably the least interesting out of all the characters for sure. Yeah, so that's just my only qualm. Not necessarily a performance issue, just a character issue. Yeah, for sure. All right, man. So we're down to it here, and we might as well get to final thoughts and trash it or treasure it. So I'm going to throw it right back to you, Brady. Trash it or treasure it. These types of movies are always so hard to do this because we have to. It is, for sure. It is. I don't know, you know, we've said it all. Performances, fantastic. I didn't like the changes they made to it. I didn't necessarily like the ending. I'm fine with there not being a twist. I thought the score was also a little off. I don't know how you felt about that, but like...
No, I liked the score.
Really? I felt like
the
scene when they first enter the cabin, it was almost like a little too lighthearted for me, if that makes sense. Like it was a little...
No, yeah, it is very melodic, very emotional.
Kinda, yeah, so, you know, that kind of took me out of it. I think, again, I just went into this nitpicking it, and maybe it was because I knew that they were making changes and I was trying to analyze every single change they made. Whatever the case, I didn't hate this movie. I would watch it again, you know?
Oh, okay, okay.
Because I do think the performances were that solid. So for that, I'll treasure it, man. Like, I'm excited to see more horror out there, especially more adaptations of book horror. So great for Paul Tremblay, great for M. Night, great for the entire cast. Yeah, definitely like, and go out and support horror. So like, even if you're on the fence about it, just go fucking see it.
Even if you've been burned a million times by M. Night, I mean,
who hasn't?
You never know which M. Night you're going to get when you show up, you know? Yeah. I mean, but people, there is a large, you know, part of the film-loving community that loves some of the movies that people shit on all the time. I mean, we all love what we love. Film is subjective, so everyone's going to walk into a movie with their own expectations, and you're going to see it. And, you know, by doing this rating system on this show, you know, Epic Film Guys used to do 1 out of 10 rating, which made it so much easier to rate movies. You know, now it's a trash it or treasure it. Now it's a, you know, it's a 2 thumbs up or 2 thumbs down type of situation. That was my clever way, if you will, of trying to mirror, you know, my legend Siskel and Ebert that really got me into film criticism at a young age. Yeah. But it's fucking hard. I mean, sometimes when you watch those old Siskel and Eberts, you're like, you could tell sometimes that one of them liked the movie and they're like still giving it a thumbs down. I'm like, how did you fucking do that? Like, so I feel like with all the things that I've said here, it would be unfair for me to trash this movie because even though I didn't think it was brilliant, a masterpiece, or even M. Night's best movie, I think it's his best movie in a while. I think he's showcasing his abilities in a good way, and I think performances are all around good. Opening the movie is very suspenseful. I think the middle dragged a little bit, you know. But overall, the movie was fine. Mm-hmm. It was perfectly fine. It served its purpose. It did what it was supposed to do, and it did it okay. It didn't do it, you know, above and beyond, but it's, you know, an indication that M. Night's not done yet. He's going to keep self-financing his movies. He's going to still keep swinging for the fences, which I have to appreciate as a cinephile and a film critic. So I'm going to also treasure it. Am I going to buy this movie? Probably not. It didn't knock my socks off like Split did and make me want to rush back out to the theater to see it. But I was quite satisfied overall by the movie. So we both treasured it.
There we go.
And now you can see how hard it is, ladies and gentlemen, for me to rate a movie when it's
meh,
good or bad.
Yeah.
Throw it in the trash or put it on my mantle. But yeah, there it is. And thank you so much for listening to this Brain Stew Fresh Fright review of M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin. If you like what you're hearing, if you love what you're hearing, if you think we suck and B-Ratty needs to get a fucking haircut, leave us a review on iTunes.
Yeah. I mean,
I said that on purpose just to get a reaction out of you, and that face was just pure gold, my friend.
I was like, wait a minute, I just got a haircut, right? Is it bad?
You no longer have your fucking truck stop trucker
my interstate love song hair.
James Hetfield hair.
All right.
Also, you can leave us a review on Spotify. It's much easier. And if you're not already following us on social media, check us out at Epic Film Guys, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're literally on every single podcatcher there is, every podcast platform. So
we're worldwide,
check us out.
baby.
We're worldwide, bitch.
Prestige.
But until
worldwide.
Next time, I'm Justin.
I'm B-Ratty.
Jeremy will be back next week. Mm-hmm. And as we always ask you, we like to ask you. We always ask you.
We need to ask you.
I need to ask you again. Keep it creepy. Brain Stew.